The rain-soaked streets of Seattle gleamed under the neon glow. But inside the cramped apartment, Riley's world was collapsing. At 28, Riley, a non-binary artist with a penchant for vibrant murals, stared at the pregnancy test, its 2 lines screaming a truth they weren't ready to face. 3 alphas, each a force of nature, each claiming a piece of Riley's heart, now stood to unravel everything they'd built. Riley's hands trembled as they set the test on the bathroom sink, the faint hum of the city outside barely piercing the fog of their thoughts. They'd always navigated life with a quiet defiance, embracing their identity in a world that often demanded boxes they refused to fit. But this was a storm they hadn't seen coming. The first to come to mind was Marcus, the 30-year-old black firefighter whose warm laugh could light up the darkest nights. They'd met 6 months ago at a community mural project in Capitol Hill. Marcus had been volunteering, his broad shoulders dusted with paint as he helped kids splash colors on a community center wall. His steady presence had grounded Riley, their late-night talks under starlit rooftops weaving a bond that felt unbreakable. But Marcus was an alpha, his protective instincts fierce, and Riley knew he'd claim the child without hesitation. Then there was Julian, the 32-year-old Latino chef whose restaurant in Fremont was a haven of warmth and spice. Julian's flirtatious grin and quick wit had drawn Riley in during a late-night food truck event, where they'd bonded over shared stories of growing up outside society's norms. Their chemistry was electric. Stolen kisses in the restaurant's back alley leaving Riley dizzy. Julian, too, was an alpha, his passion matched only by his stubborn pride. And finally, there was Ezra, the 29-year-old white musician with stormy gray eyes and a voice that could make Riley's heart ache. They'd crossed paths at a queer open mic night in Ballard, where Ezra's soulful guitar riffs had felt like a conversation meant just for Riley. Their connection was raw, unguarded, but Ezra's alpha intensity sometimes bordered on chaos, his emotions as unpredictable as the songs he wrote. Riley sank to the floor, the cold tiles grounding them as memories of each alpha flashed through their mind. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of love, desire, and blurred lines, moments of intimacy with each man. None exclusive, all consensual. Riley had been upfront about their polyamorous heart, and each alpha had accepted it, or so they'd thought. Now, with a child on the way, the fragile balance was shattering. The doorbell buzzed, sharp and insistent. Riley's heart lurched. They hadn't told anyone yet, but Marcus had a habit of showing up unannounced with coffee and a smile. Wiping their eyes, Riley opened the door to find not just Marcus, but Julian, too, standing side by side in the hallway, tension crackling between them. "Riley, we need to talk," Marcus said, his deep voice steady but laced with urgency. He held a takeout bag from Julian's restaurant, an odd detail that made Riley's stomach twist. Julian's dark eyes flickered with something unreadable. "Yeah, about us. All of us." Riley's breath caught. They hadn't even shared the news, but the air felt thick with unspoken truths. "What's going on?" they asked, stepping back to let them in. Marcus set the bag on the counter, his firefighter's frame filling the small space. "I heard from Ezra," he said, his tone careful. "He's been talking, claiming things. About you. About a future." Julian crossed his arms, his jaw tight. "He's not the only one with a claim. Riley, you know that." Riley's pulse raced. They hadn't planned to tell anyone yet, but the pregnancy test sat like a ticking bomb on the sink, visible through the open bathroom door. Marcus followed their gaze, and his eyes widened. Julian froze, his breath hitching. "Is that?" Marcus started, his voice barely a whisper. Riley nodded, their throat tight. "I'm pregnant, and I don't know who the father is." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus's face softened, a flicker of hope in his eyes, while Julian's expression hardened, his alpha instincts flaring. Riley braced themselves, knowing this was only the beginning. The next morning, Riley sat at their favorite coffee shop in Pioneer Square, the smell of espresso mingling with the weight of their thoughts. They'd asked for space after the tense night, but the alpha's reactions lingered. Marcus had been quiet, offering a gentle hand on Riley's shoulder before leaving. Julian had stormed out, muttering about needing air. And Ezra? He hadn't even been there, but his absence felt like a storm cloud. Riley's phone buzzed with a text from Ezra. "Meet me at the pier. We need to talk." Alone. Their hearts sank. Ezra's intensity always pulled them in, but it also left them reeling. Still, they couldn't avoid him forever. The Seattle waterfront was alive with tourists and seagulls when Riley arrived. Ezra stood by the railing, his guitar case slung over his shoulder, his gray eyes scanning the horizon. At 29, he carried a restless energy, his tousled brown hair catching the breeze. He turned as Riley approached, his face a mix of longing and frustration. "I heard," he said without preamble. "From Julian. About the baby." Riley's stomach dropped. "I was going to tell you myself." Ezra's jaw clenched. "You should have. This changes everything. Riley, that kid, it could be mine. Or Marcus's. Or Julian's," Riley said, their voice firm despite the tremor in their chest. "I don't know yet. Ezra, I need time." His eyes darkened. "Time? Riley, I've been in love with you since that first night at the open mic. I'm not just some guy you hook up with. I'm an alpha. And if that's my kid..." "Stop," Riley cut in, their voice sharp. "This isn't about your alpha pride. This is about me. My body. My choice." Ezra flinched, his hands balling into fists. For a moment, Riley thought he'd argue, but he exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "You're right. I'm sorry. I can't lose you." Riley's heart softened, but the weight of his words pressed against them. They'd never wanted to choose, never wanted to cage their heart to one person. But now, with a child involved, the freedom they'd cherished felt like a fading dream. Back at their apartment, Riley tried to focus on their latest mural project, a vibrant piece for a queer youth center in Belltown. But their mind kept drifting to the alphas. Each man had carved a space in their life, their love a tapestry of colors Riley couldn't untangle. Marcus's steady warmth, Julian's fiery passion, Ezra's raw vulnerability, they were all part of Riley's world. But could they coexist with a child in the picture? The doorbell rang again, and Riley's heart skipped. This time, it was Marcus alone, his firefighter's jacket slung over one arm, a soft smile on his face. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice gentle. Riley nodded, letting him in. Marcus sat on the couch, his large hands clasped together. "I've been thinking," he said, "about the baby. About us. I don't care who the father is. Riley, I want to be there for you. For the kid." Tears pricked Riley's eyes. Marcus's selflessness was a balm, but it also complicated things. "What if it's not yours?" they asked quietly. Marcus reached for their hand, his touch warm and steady. "Then I'll love them anyway. I love you, Riley. That's enough." For a moment, Riley let themselves lean into his warmth, the weight of the world easing. But in the back of their mind, they knew Julian and Ezra wouldn't step aside so easily. The storm was far from over. The days that followed were a blur of tension and unspoken questions. Riley's small apartment felt like a pressure cooker, each alpha's presence a spark threatening to ignite. Julian had returned the next evening, his usual swagger subdued, replaced by a quiet intensity that unnerved Riley. He'd brought a container of his famous pozole, setting it on the counter like an offering. "I'm not good at this," Julian admitted, his voice low as he leaned against the kitchen counter. At 32, his sharp cheekbones and warm brown eyes carried a confidence that usually put Riley at ease. But tonight, his gaze was heavy. "I've been thinking about what you said," About the baby. I want to be part of this. Riley. I don't care about the others. Riley's chest tightened. Julian. It's not that simple. I can't just pick one of you. And I won't let this tear us apart. He stepped closer, his alpha aura filling the space. I'm not asking you to pick. I'm saying I'm all in. For you. For the kid. Whoever's the father. The sincerity in his voice tugged at Riley's heart, but it also stirred a familiar fear. Julian's passion was a double-edged sword, beautiful, but possessive. They'd seen it in the way he ran his restaurant, pouring his soul into every dish, but also in the way he bristled when Ezra or Marcus got too close. Before Riley could respond, a knock at the door broke the moment. Ezra stood there, his guitar nowhere in sight, his face pale. I need to talk to you, he said, glancing at Julian with barely concealed irritation. Both of you, I guess. Riley sighed, waving him in. The air grew thick as the three sat in the living room, the weight of their shared history pressing down. Riley had always cherished the freedom of their polyamorous dynamic, but now it felt like a tightrope stretched too thin. I've been thinking, Ezra began, his voice raw. I know I came on strong at the pier, and I'm sorry, but I can't stop thinking about you. Riley. About the baby. I want to be a father. I need to know if it's mine. Julian scoffed, leaning back in his chair. You're not the only one. Ezra. We all feel that way. Marcus, who'd arrived quietly during the exchange, stood in the doorway, his calm presence a stark contrast to the rising tension. Enough, he said, his voice firm but kind. This isn't about us. It's about Riley. They're the one carrying this child, and we're acting like it's a competition. Riley's throat tightened, gratitude mixing with exhaustion. I need you all to understand something, they said, their voice steady despite the chaos inside. I love each of you. I've never hidden that. But this baby, it's not about claiming ownership. It's about building something together. Or not at all. The room fell silent, each alpha processing Riley's words. For the first time, Riley saw a flicker of doubt in their eyes, nod in their love. But in the future they'd all imagined. The next week, Riley threw themselves into their mural project, hoping the vibrant colors and bold lines would drown out the uncertainty. The youth center in Belltown buzzed with energy. Young queer kids painting alongside Riley. Their laughter a reminder of why Riley poured their heart into their art. But even here, the alphas found them. Marcus showed up first, bringing a tray of sandwiches for the kids. His easy smile and quiet strength won them over. And soon he was helping a shy teen paint a rainbow across the wall. Riley watched, their hearts swelling at his kindness, but also aching at the unspoken question in his eyes. Julian arrived later, his restaurant's food truck parked outside, offering free tacos to the kids. His charm was infectious, drawing a crowd, but Riley noticed the way his gaze lingered on them, searching for answers. When he pulled Riley aside, his voice was soft but urgent. I've been thinking about what you said, about building something together. I'm trying, Riley, but I need to know where I stand. Before Riley could respond, Ezra's voice cut through the noise. He'd shown up with his guitar, strumming a gentle melody that had the kids swaying. But when he saw Julian with Riley, his music stopped abruptly. What's this? He asked, his tone sharp. Another private moment I'm not invited to. The kids sensed the tension, their chatter fading. Riley stepped forward, their voice firm. This isn't the place for this. We're here for them, they said, nodding toward the kids. Not for your egos. Ezra's face fell, and he nodded, picking up his guitar again. Julian stepped back, his jaw tight. Marcus, ever the peacemaker, clapped a hand on Ezra's shoulder, guiding him back to the group. But Riley knew this was only a temporary truce. That night, Riley sat alone in their apartment, sketching ideas for the mural. The baby was a constant presence now, a flutter in their belly that grounded them even as their world spun. They'd always believed love could be expansive, that their heart could hold space for Marcus, Julian, and Ezra. But the alpha's instincts their need to claim, to protect were pulling them apart. A soft knock broke their thoughts. Marcus stood at the door, his expression softer than Riley had ever seen. "I brought you something," he said, holding out a small wooden carving of a bird. "Made it myself. For the baby." Riley's eyes welled up as they took the carving, its smooth lines warm in their hand. "Marcus, I don't know how to do this," they admitted. "I don't want to lose any of you, but I can't choose." He knelt beside them, his voice steady. "You don't have to choose, Riley. We'll figure this out. Together." For the first time in days, Riley felt a flicker of hope. But as Marcus left, their phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. Just you and me." And another from Ezra. "I'm not giving up on us." The hope dimmed, replaced by the weight of what lay ahead. The Seattle sky was a bruised gray as Riley met Julian at his restaurant after closing. The air smelled of cumin and roasted peppers. But the warmth of the space couldn't ease the knot in Riley's chest. Julian stood behind the counter, wiping it down with a rag, his movements deliberate but tense. At 32, his passion for his craft was matched only by his intensity. And tonight, it radiated off him like heat from a stove. "I've been thinking about what you said," Julian began, his voice low. "About building something together. I want that, Riley. But I'm not good at sharing. Not when it comes to you." Riley's heart ached. They'd always admired Julian's fire, but now it felt like a flame that could consume them both. "I'm not asking you to share," they said carefully. "I'm asking you to trust me. To trust that we can figure this out without anyone losing." Julian's eyes softened, but his jaw remained tight. "I trust you. It's them I don't trust. Ezra's too reckless. And Marcus, he's too perfect. It drives me crazy." Riley reached across the counter, their hand brushing his. "You're enough, Julian. You all are. But this baby isn't a prize to be won." He nodded, but the tension lingered. Before Riley could say more, the restaurant door swung open, and Ezra stormed in, his gray eyes blazing. "I knew I'd find you here," he said, his voice sharp. "Julian, you don't get to corner Riley like this." Julian stepped around the counter, his stance rigid. "And you don't get to barge in like you own them." Riley's pulse spiked. "Stop it, both of you," they shouted, their voice echoing in the empty restaurant. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're turning this into a fight, and I'm not a battlefield." Ezra's shoulders slumped, and Julian took a step back, guilt flickering across his face. For a moment, silence held them, the weight of their words settling like dust. "I'm sorry," Ezra said finally, his voice breaking. I love you, Riley. And the thought of losing you or this kid, it's killing me." Julian's gaze softened, and he nodded. "I get it. I feel the same." Riley's throat tightened. They wanted to believe this could work, but the alpha's instincts were a storm they couldn't control. The next day, Riley sought refuge at the youth center, the mural nearly complete. The kids' laughter filled the air, but Riley's thoughts were elsewhere. Marcus had texted, asking to meet later, and Ezra had left a voicemail, his voice soft and pleading. Julian hadn't reached out, but Riley knew he was wrestling with his own heart. As Riley painted, a young trans teen named Sam approached, their eyes bright. "You okay, Riley?" they asked. "You seem heavy." Riley smiled faintly. "Just figuring some stuff out. Grown-up stuff." Sam nodded, wise beyond their 15 years. "My moms went through something like that when they adopted me. They didn't know how to make it work, but they did, because they loved each other. And me." The words hit Riley like a wave. Love wasn't just about passion or possession, it was about building something bigger than themselves. They thanked Sam, their resolve strengthening. That evening, Marcus met Riley at a quiet park in Green Lake. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the water, and Marcus's steady presence felt like an anchor. "I've been talking to the others," he said, his voice calm. "We're all messed up over this, but we want to try. For you. For the baby." Riley's eyes widened. "You've been talking." Marcus nodded. "It's not easy. Ezra's stubborn, and Julian's territorial. But we all love you. We're willing to work on it." Tears welled in Riley's eyes. For the first time, they saw a path forward, not perfect, but possible. But as they hugged Marcus, their phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "Ezra's planning something. Meet us at the pier. Now." The pier was crowded with evening joggers and couples, but Riley spotted Julian and Ezra near the railing, their voices raised. Marcus stayed close, his hand brushing Riley's for reassurance. As they approached, Ezra turned, his face a mix of determination and fear. "I've made a decision," Ezra said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I'm stepping back. Not from you, Riley, or the baby, but from this fight. I can't keep doing this to you." Julian's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'll be there. Whatever you need," Ezra continued, looking at Riley. "Father or not. But I won't push. I won't claim." Riley's heart swelled, but Julian's voice cut through. "That's noble, Ezra. But I'm not stepping back. I want Thysis. The baby. All of it." Marcus stepped forward, his voice firm. "Then we do it together. All of us. Or we lose Riley." The words hung in the air, a challenge and a promise. Riley looked at the three alphas, their love a tangled, beautiful mess. They didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, they felt like they could face the storm together. Weeks passed, and the tension between the alphas simmered, but a fragile truce held. Riley's pregnancy progressed. The baby's kicks a constant reminder of the future they were all navigating. They'd started meeting as a group. Marcus, Julian, Ezra, and Riley, awkward at first, but slowly finding a rhythm. The youth center mural was complete, its vibrant colors a testament to Riley's hope. But the real work was happening off the canvas. One evening, they gathered at Marcus's small house in West Seattle, a cozy space filled with wooden carvings and the scent of cedar. Marcus had cooked, his signature chili warming the room as they sat around the table. Julian brought dessert, a flan that melted on the tongue, and Ezra strummed his guitar softly in the background, filling the silence with gentle notes. "I've been thinking," Riley said, their voice steady despite the nerves. "We need to talk about what this looks like after the baby's born." Julian set down his spoon, his eyes intense. "I've been looking at apartments. Bigger ones. For all of us. Maybe." Ezra's strumming paused, his brow furrowing. "All of us. Like, living together." Marcus leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "It could work. If we're honest. If we communicate." Riley's heart raced. The idea was daunting, but it sparked something in theme, a vision of a family. Unconventional, but real. "I want this baby to grow up surrounded by love," they said. "Not competition. Can you do that?" The alphas exchanged glances, the weight of the question settling over them. Finally, Marcus nodded. "I'm in." Julian hesitated, then reached for Riley's hand. "Me too." Ezra's eyes softened, and he set his guitar aside. "Yeah, I'm in." The moment felt like a turning point, but Riley knew it wouldn't be easy. Love was messy, and alphas were stubborn. Still, the commitment in their eyes gave Riley hope. As Riley's due date approached, the group faced new challenges. Julian's restaurant hit a rough patch, a bad review threatening its reputation. and his stress spilled into their meetings. Ezra's band got a gig that would take him on tour for weeks, and he wrestled with the idea of leaving. Marcus, ever steady, took on extra shifts at the fire station, his exhaustion palpable. One night, Riley woke to sharp pains, their breath hitching. It was too early, only 34 weeks. Panic surged as they called Marcus, who arrived in minutes, his calm presence grounding them. Julian and Ezra met them at the hospital, their faces pale but determined. The labor was long, grueling, but the alphas stayed by Riley's side, each offering a different kind of strength. Marcus held their hand, whispering encouragement. Julian paced, muttering prayers in Spanish. Ezra sang softly, his voice a soothing anchor. When the baby, a tiny, fierce girl they named Sage, was born, Riley's world shifted. She was perfect, her dark eyes a mystery that held them all. The alphas gathered around, their rivalry forgotten in the face of her tiny breaths. "She's ours," Marcus said softly, his voice thick with emotion. Julian nodded, tears in his eyes. "Ours." Ezra reached out, his fingers brushing Sage's tiny hand. "Yeah, ours." Riley's heart swelled, the love in the room overwhelming. But as they looked at the three alphas, a question lingered. Could this fragile unity hold? The first weeks with Sage were a whirlwind of sleepless nights and tender moments. The alphas took turns staying at Riley's apartment, learning to change diapers and soothe cries. Julian cooked endless meals. Ezra wrote lullabies, and Marcus built a crib with his own hands. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. One night, Julian snapped at Ezra over a spilled bottle, his frustration boiling over. "You're never here when it counts," he said, his voice sharp. Ezra bristled. "I'm doing my best, Julian. I'm not the one who's always at the restaurant." Marcus stepped between them, his voice calm but firm. "Enough. We're all trying. For Sage. For Riley." Riley watched, their heart heavy. They loved these men, but the weight of their alpha instincts was a constant challenge. Still, they saw the effort, the way Julian apologized, the way Ezra stayed up late with Sage, the way Marcus mediated with endless patience. Months later, Riley stood in the rooftop garden of their new home, a spacious loft in Capitol Hill they'd all moved into together. Sage was 6 months old, her giggles filling the air as Marcus pushed her in a swing he'd built. Julian was grilling, the scent of spices mingling with the summer breeze, while Ezra strummed a soft melody, his eyes on Sage. The journey hadn't been easy. There were fights, tears, and moments when Riley thought it would all fall apart. Julian's possessiveness flared at times. Ezra's impulsiveness caused friction, and even Marcus's calm had its limits. But they'd worked through a therapy, late-night talks, and a shared commitment to Sage and each other. Riley had chosen not to do a paternity test. The question of Sage's biological father felt less important than the family they were building. Each alpha had become a father in their own way, Marcus with his steady love, Julian with his fierce devotion, Ezra with his boundless creativity. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Riley gathered the alphas in the garden. Sage slept in their arms, her tiny chest rising and falling. "I need to say something," Riley began, their voice soft but clear. "I was scared this wouldn't work, that we'd tear each other apart. But you've shown me what love can do, how it can build." Marcus reached for Riley's hand, his smile warm. Julian's eyes softened, his usual intensity replaced by quiet pride. Ezra set his guitar down, his gaze steady. "We're a family," he said simply. Riley nodded, tears in their eyes. "Yeah, we are." The city sparkled below, a testament to the chaos and beauty of their journey. Riley looked at Sage, then at the three men who'd chosen to walk this path with them. The future wasn't certain, love never was, but it was theirs, built on trust, resilience, and a love that refused to be confined. As the stars emerged, Riley felt a profound peace. They'd faced the storm and found something stronger, a family that defied definition, rooted in love's boundless truth.